keep going back while everybody's talking. I can't stop thinking about that image in the Lily James documentary. That's her name, right? Where
Lily
they go,
Phillips.
Phillips. They go into the Airbnb after the fact. Sorry about touching the mic. Sorry about that. And the image immediately, one of the crew starts to retch and has to bolt. Because it's not just for them. It's not just a visual experience. It's not just a little bit of trash on the floor and disarray. It's viscerally disgusting. And they need it. I guarantee you that guy's life is never going to be the same again in a good way. And I think that's what we're at. I think that's what God's back to my providence thing and what's at work. I think God makes us. God directs our religio. I'm not good at all this formal seminary stuff, you guys, highfalutin language you use, but I think God makes us. And I think God is making us now.
It was so interesting how the Lily Phillips, I don't know how deeply that penetrated to normie world, but boy, in our corners and little adjacent corners of the internet, that story whooshed.
Well, that's why I'm going to have an OnlyFans ministry. And you guys are mocking me for it, but I
do think a big part of that is she looks like a daughter. And for those of us that are either manly men or fathers, it's like, that's a daughter. And she's been deceived. I mean, to a certain degree, I got the feeling of God looking down at Eve. You deceived my daughter. You deceived her into becoming this.
But keep in mind, she's one person. There were 100 men, so-called, who participated, who made it happen, and each of them, I mean, there's 100 males poisoned by the experience, as well as herself. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's trauma in all directions.
Yeah, everyone is deceived.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because what I was thinking about the marketing thing, and it's like starts with Edward Bernays and doing PR. It starts as propaganda, and you have like torches of freedom, making the cigarettes sexy to women, and I think because I even looked at this, and before a certain point. Well, really, the thing is photography. It's like the invention of photography, because prior to that, if you wanted to advertise something, you would have a picture of the product. But once you have photography, and then you can capture the product perfectly, but you can also have a beautiful woman presenting it. And as soon as you have that advertisement is not just for the product. It's selling the product, but it's also selling you could be the woman in the advertisement. And which then becomes the Hollywood starlet and the TV star, and then goes into the right to Lily Phillips, like, and now it's more accessible than ever. I think that's the and I do think there is something what Mark's saying, like we have to kind of get sick of it, where now it looks, I think hopefully we are at the like saturation point where there's because I think that stuff was probably always going on, but no one was talking to the lady that got to be like the model.
That's very true. I can tell you the amount of guys that I know, family and close friends, that lost their virginities in what's called a train. It's one woman and one girl in a room, and the guys just wait in line. And that's not in urban ghettos. That's not an uncommon thing. So like somebody put in the comments, 100 minutes, like that didn't shock me in that way, mainly because I've encountered that. I haven't personally encountered or been present for something like that, but I know a lot of people that have both the females and the males.
Well, So I'm I get a little bit of an itch when we start to talk about how, God or the religion would kind of fix all this. Paul knows a little
You
more
must be
about.
born again, Rod.
I'm
Such-
I'm the affable version of T Grog around here.
Way more subtle and sneaky.
So Paul knows my background pretty well, but for not that important here. But grew up, no television house, no radio, no going to movies. A very Bible based, very strict fundamentalist background. If my concern with religion, organized religion, is if its explanatory power were so compelling, then we'd have an antidote to this. We wouldn't be talking about how can we possibly protect our children from this filth, because it would be obvious, right? That I said earlier, are you going to be the one dad on your block that's like, yeah, I have some concerns about Taylor Swift? Good Christian folks are standing in those stands and cheering along with them, right? You have to be fairly insightful to recognize this might not be such a good idea, right? And if religion doesn't give you that, well, then it's not doing its job, right? So at some level, you could almost take everything that's being said here and flip it and say this is the fault of religion, that it has not held up. It has not done the job of preparing families for the world that awaits them. So, I mean, of course I could go on about this, and I'm always careful not to be the skunk at the garden party, but I just at least have to kind of raise the concern. What if we just flipped everything we just said and said this is the reason it's happening is because the failure of organized religion?
Well, I appreciate you, Agrog, but and the thing is, I think you're right. The explanatory power of religion is fairly weak.
If I said to you, for example, if I said the 80-year-old version of you is when you look back on this point in your life and the choices you're making right now, what do you think the 80-year-old version of you is going to think of what's happening, right? Something as simple as that, just a very simple secular framing, taps people into something. And Peterson has done this, basically sort of befriend yourself, be your own advocate, think about, making sacrifices for the future that you want, as well as the people around you, right? I mean, it's a similar idea. But in a sense, that has as powerful or more powerful in terms of persuasion than the fear of hell or some disapproving sky daddy or whatever. I get there's way more to it than that. That's not my point, right?
Well,
but the way most people are engaging with religion, it's just simply not holding up against the onslaught of popular culture.
This stuff. Well, the thing is that this is religion. It is the thing, because
I agree.
And you have the propaganda. That starts that's the Catholic Church's way to reach the masses, and it involves crafting the message to meet the culture and building the cathedral and having the images. And I think the thing is that ultimately, human beings made in the image of God, photography, and especially with motion and things, it captures more of the image of God. The problem is the aim that it's put towards, and because I think that there's no doubt that people are looking at this stuff. They're searching for something transcendent. The problem is that they're in a constant search mode with no landing point. Unless if you're signing up to participate in one of these horrific events. But, it's even I just read something where it was talking about that, the dopamine levels or whatever are highest when men are searching for pornography to look at, not when they're actually watching the video or whatever. It's in the search that they are the most excited and anticipating. And then it inevitably, what they find never lives up to that high point. But those who can find their way into the embodied experience, like Mo was pointing to, that gives you the context. So in some ways the problem is why aren't we? How do we sell marriage and family and traditional life?
Or how do we sell to our family first? To a certain degree, I think, again, first I must point out this is all coming back to my topic.
Yeah.
But it's so part of what the evangelical movement did, and the big Willow Creeks and Saddlebacks and things like that, is they said, well, we need to go find believers out there. Whereas, and again, I'm not trying to say that the CRC did everything perfectly, even though now I'm CRC minister, and I should say that. They were like, well, let's have kids and let's catechize them. But eventually, you're not going to have an absolute system that works. But it's like, I think at a certain point, a lot of people stopped wooing or selling or marketing deep faith to their own families, and they could explain it maybe, or let's have this one-on-one. And similarly, I could have a one-on-one with my wife and tell her why I'm the best man for her or whatever. But part of being a good and faithful husband is continuing to woo her. Part of being a father is not just teaching my kids well, but to a certain degree, selling them, wooing them. I used to be in a band, and part of being in a band is wooing the audience. You have to sell the show.
No, I think that you have to distinguish. In Buddhism, they're very good at mapping the path. And early on, a tradition developed where there's the idea of entering the stream. That's the starting point. It's not enlightenment. You're not even near, you're still a million lifetimes away from nirvana, but you've entered the stream. You've started. Don't get caught up in the distinction between Buddhism. I'm just saying that's just an example. Christianity, we've lost, I think for Rod, what I'm saying is there is so much of American Christianity is you think you walk through the door, you enter the stream, you go to a Billy Graham crusade, it used to be, or now it's a Harvest crusade, and you have your big walk down moment. Voila, theologically, I'm now born again, and then they turn around and we think it's all one and done. And that kind of religion is failing us. The one and doneness, the 4 steps, or what all these different, read the right prayer, do the right thing, be a part of the right tradition or the right baptism or the right denomination or whatever. That's failing us. What we do need is we need to I think cultivate today a tradition of you're entering. You're starting the walk down the aisle, or the commitment to be baptized, or the decision to, I'm going to hang out with this group of people on this day at this time, and I'm going to participate in this practice. I'm starting. I'm entering the stream. Salvation is the living out of that over a very long time, struggling, having difficulties. And this is really key for me personally anyway, is meeting the living Christ periodically, providentially in the process, having encounters. And now I know that's really, really hard for physicalists, modernists to grok. I understand that, because you're afraid of going crazy. You're afraid that this is all in my head. I don't want everything to be all, but we already live in so much craziness already. Why not live in a little divine craziness? And if you meet Jesus on the road to Damascus, embrace it, and that too is just part of it. But it's this, we don't. Am I okay? Again, I'm wondering if I'm communicating at all, but
well, I know what you're talking about. I believe in the woo, and we need the woo. We can't manufacture the woo, But
No.
those of us who have it, I guess, and I would say, like, because I definitely agree with what Mo was saying about, like, the way that evangelization has, like, thinned out the meat of, like, what it means to be a Christian. Like, because I was in
Right.
Pentecostal churches for 15 years, and it was, it was all about getting them in, and then it was, okay, well, now that you're in, go get more people and bring them in, and nobody was,
Right.
how do you do your life? Like, that was a,
Ponzi scheme.
like, yeah, that was like a fifth order priority or something.
But there is so much magic in the relationships. I mean, just in the relationships we have between ourselves and the quarter. And we're not of one faith even, but we have these remarkable magical experiences. And there is a little bit of woo happening even online between us.
Well, I agree. So, but then this is what I think, because the big question I was wrestling with and thinking about this, and especially thinking about, because, my family is the people I most am worried about evangelizing. And it's like, yes, I got this stuff from my parents, and they were new believers. It was almost sort of like a fluke. I don't know that it stuck with me, or not really. They did a good job, but like, and then everyone is wrestling. Okay, do we need to go to live in this isolated enclave, and keep the outsiders out? And I don't think that's the way. The thing that my solution, what I kind of came up with, was looking at the Feast of Tabernacles, which was this thing where you are supposed to celebrate, and it's supposed to be this joyous thing, and you're kind of like, it's focused on the community, you're getting away, but you're also supposed to invite the person in. And so that means you have to have that robust community and invite the people on the fringes into it. Like, and it's really about finding that right balance, but you won't, without that robust connection with the people closest to you, you don't have what it takes to draw the people in and keep them there.
If Lilly Phillips was part of, and her family,
Her mother was her manager on that video, by the way. Which is a chilling thought.
Right. If they were part of a community that cared for them, really, authentically, non-transactionally, and they felt they were seriously grounded in, is there any chance in the world that young woman would have done what she did?
Yes.
You really think so? Have we seen that? We've seen them
hear
go.
Rod talk.
They pack. I'm just hold on just a second.
Lower. So I think
chances
that's
are lower, definitely.
Yeah, because I think I'm with you, Mark, on this, because I feel like people use that as an excuse a lot. Well, they could be raised in the best family, and it's possible, but the chances go way down. Yeah.
I've seen them do the prodigal. They go away to do it.
Right.
They would not do it and stay.
Most of us can tick off the profile. Probably a child of divorce. There's a biggie right there. Mm-hmm. But I want to hear we've had a lot of. I want to hear what Rod has to say to some of this stuff.
Just to be clear, I'm all in on the woo, Mark. In case you're not clearly.
You should join us on the House of Woo sometime, Rod.
And don't ever call me a materialist. Don't call me any of those words.
I wouldn't mean to call you names. I apologize.
No, it wasn't necessarily directed at me. Just in case it was. It's like, I'm not one of them, right?
Okay.
I'm kind of all in on the woo, maybe more than you'd be comfortable with, actually. I brought my Ganesh with me last week just to give you a little love. But so what is more woo than the first time the stirrings between a young man and woman happen? Is there anything more powerful than the first time you believe in love? I'm not saying that's the only one. I'm just saying one of the most cynical and callous things we have ever done is, for fear of teenage pregnancies, we told that young girl, well, it's all fine, but whatever you do, don't fall in love, dear. And, be careful, right? Most self-respecting parents were at least trying to give responsible guidance about things like safe sex and stuff like that. And, hopefully it's, we know the boy, we know the parents, and, and obviously you shouldn't do this unless you have feelings or something, right? But whatever you do, wait till you get to college. You're going to have a lot more to choose from, right? That message, I mean, is anybody surprised by what I just said? Does that sound about what a lot of parents would have said for the last 30 years to their teenagers? Whatever you do, don't fall in love, right? So the very thing that is maybe one of the most powerful experiences you've had in your young life, you're being told this isn't real. Don't believe it. Don't trust it. Instead of a cultural norm that builds all sorts of rituals and institutions and signaling devices, the way you show what's happening, and now you have to earn your way into a deeper kind of connection. This is where Peterson got in trouble with his enforced monogamy thing, right? Most stable societies have found ways to ritualize these courtship rituals, because there's a recognition there that you can't just take all the guardrails off, because you're going to create a free-for-all. Right now, I would argue that is a religious question, and that is the responsibility of the church. And that was kind of the point I was making. If the church can't do that, what can it do?
Well, it has done it though in the past, Rod.
I'm not saying they don't say it. I'm just saying that it hasn't yielded that
but
result.
it did it for antiquity.
Oh, agreed.
Went in and it transformed pagan Roman culture, and so it has been done. It has failed us today, and we can look at good reasons, right? I mean, when we think about all the sex scandals and corruption and whatnot in the churches of the 20th and early 21st century, it's pretty appalling, and the wreckage is everywhere, right? But I think for me, there's a bit of the wine and wineskins thing. We have to let this thing die. We can't pour old wine into. Is it old wine into new wineskins, or new wine into old wineskins?
New wine into old wineskins.
Wine. Thank you. We
I don't
can't.
think you're supposed to do either.
Yeah, I don't think either one works, right?
No.
But it's we have to just. I don't think we need to just clutch our pearls and fret about the society we're in. We have to. It's going to die on its own accord. What we need is to build. We need the new wineskin. We need the new wine, and we need to prepare a place for people to come as walking wounded into our communities, where we restore them and they restore us.
Well,
and we grow together.
They're going to need to have a little bit of confidence that is what's going to happen in the community. It's going to get into marketing. But Chad is sticking his head around. So Chad, go ahead. Or are you just listening?
No, I definitely want to say something. I get the sense that there is no solution to the problem that we're going to bring to the table. I mean, not in any definitive way that you're gonna be able to, put in a set of steps or something like that. I think it's that's kind of what I was thinking about. When somebody said the explanatory power of Christianity is not going to work. It's like, I 100% agree. The explanatory power will do almost zero for most. It's going to be the shared lived experience, which I think is kind of what Mark Parker is saying. But there's also I think the guardrails that the church has, or these different institutions, should stick to their guns on a lot of those guardrails, and then the in an institutional way, they should probably stick to those, and then each player or each member in those places should act as if they're actually living in reality with people, and that they themselves are not the institution, but are in fact a person. And so it's going to be shared. It's explanatory power will do almost nothing, but shared experience, shared life together will do a lot. But I don't think there's, I mean, the Lilly event is kind of I think has a lot to do with the world that she lived up afforded her and her parents the ability to do what it was that they've done. And there's no way of preventing that from happening until you actually burn it down, right? You have to hit the wall first. Sometimes, I think that what's about to happen here is horrible, I guess. I don't know.
We should introduce technology into this conversation, because I would assert a few things. Number one, the world is a perpetual battlefield of wooey religions competing with countermeasures built up by cultures and society to try to manage, harness, and reduce the wooiness, which is in danger of running rampant. I think a lot of the Chad's marketing thing, you can't read Mary Harrington or Louise Perry and not have ample respect for the ways that technology has changed this. Well, I think Moises is correct that many men have lost their virginity in trains, and this goes way back to brothels in the Roman Empire, et cetera, et cetera. Part of what's changed now is the Lilly Phillips issue, I think, grabs attention because so many of the threads come into it. Because her mother is the madam, but the payoff for the madam and the prostitute is, talk about a genius marketing strategy. This was, I'm sure there are, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of girls on OnlyFans trying to differentiate themselves. And via this little documentary, I'm sure it hockey sticked her OnlyFans page. And, I'm going to do 1,000 next is just pouring fuel on the fire. And all of the full breadth of deep religion, which is pervasive, is just, rocketing through this. And of course, in this reactive age of attention gathering, nothing is better than triggering fathers who see that girl as a daughter and think, oh, Mark D. Parker, if there's anything we learned about Mark D. Parker in Connecticut, is that Rod's take on men and women is true. Mark D. Parker, this man is a romantic. He is a knight. And when he sees that little girl disavowed by this, Mark Parker is ready to risk his reputation in a conservative Christian community by going on OnlyFans. And Mark, I tease you, but I genuinely respect you because, boy, this is the game of humanity. And I think Rod is right that part of what has happened is most of the old battlefield weapons of religion have been exposed in the last 80 years. And we are in one hell of an arms race right now. And the body counts are real.